Well, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Hello, my name is Zephyr, and welcome to Quick Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Transformers Legacy United Cybertron universe, Vector Prime. And right out of the gate, I just want to say that out of all the figures to use the G-Axis mold, this is my favorite. I love the way he turned out, I love the colors, especially the, nice magenta, burgundy that they use for him. It just pops and it looks great. And I love the way this guy turned out. And a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think this might actually be better than his original toy from back in the day. Sure, he may just be a very obvious retool from G-Axis, but it suits him perfectly. I cannot stress how much I love this figure, but he is not perfect because if I bring him close, you'll see that one of his knees is not painted. It's missing a little gold, but I could just fix that with a gold Sharpie. So, not that big of a deal. So, getting into his accessories, he comes with the sword and a Cyber Planet key and this really nice, glittery metallic blue, translucent. And, getting into the weapon storage, you could have the sword in the middle of his back, and that's really about it. But the Cyber Planet key, you can store in all sorts of different places. You kind of store it on his wings. You could turn the figure around, and you could place it on his chest. But I have it upside down, so let me fix that real quick. You could place it on his chest. And as for the sword, of course, you could just have him hold it. One cool thing you could do with the Cyber Planet key is you could kind of recreate the gimmick from the old toy and slot it into his bag and store his sword underneath it. And while on the topic of the Cyber Planet key, I also decided to grab my Override figure to see if it's compatible with her, and unfortunately it seems like the answer is no. It seems to be too small, it fits way too loose, it just does not want to stay in there. Even if I flip her guns out slightly, you can see that the gap is just way too big and the Cyber Planet key just does not want to fit in there. The only way I get it to stay is if I push it as deep as it can go, and it just stays in with pure friction alone. But you can clearly tell that it was not designed to be compatible with Override, and that's a bit unfortunate. It seems to be a bit oversight on Hasbro's part. Getting into transformation now. If you've watched my quick review videos in the past, you know that I like to speed it up. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that you do not need to flip the fins in order to transform this guy. The only reason I bring it up is because, A, it's possible, and B, I know that there are people who aren't really a fan of the spaceship mode with the big G-axis fin that just sticks out. They wish it was a bit more clean. So yeah, you don't have to rotate it, you don't need to flip it to transform this guy, but as you can see, you risk breaking it that way, so there's a reason why it tells you to rotate the fin and have it like this in the instructions, and honestly, I actually prefer it with the fin. I actually kind of like it. Another thing I want to point out is that this little notch on his head, when you rotate it around, you'll see that it actually goes in the middle of that peg hole, and it'll go inside the peg if you're not careful. So when you're on this step and you rotate the head in, it'll make it even harder to pull this out because it's already tight to begin with, but doing so would just make it even tighter and harder to pull out. So make sure you just pull this out before you rotate the head in if you don't want to make things unnecessarily harder for yourself. But finishing up the transformation, here we have his spaceship mode, and it looks really cool. It looks just like the original toy. And this is what I mean by the G-Axis mold fitting it perfectly, because other than the arms just awkwardly hanging down underneath and the obvious G-Axis leg molding, it looks great. And one thing that is actually kind of cool is that you can rotate this, so if you do want to display the little chest with the Cyber Planet key on it, well, in vehicle mode you can do that, but having it rotated this way, this is how the instructions officially want it transformed, and that's how the vehicle mode is supposed to be transformed. But Even in vehicle mode, this guy has a lot of like customization. You can have those rotated backwards if you really wanted to. And now getting into the weapons storage, even in vehicle mode, you can kind of imitate the Cyberplanet gimmick. It doesn't slot anywhere, but it does have these little slits right there with these little notches, and you just push it in, and it looks like he's doing his Cyberplanet key gimmick that the old toy used to be able to do. And unfortunately, there's no real cool storage for the sword. You just kind of take the sword and you either have the options to peg it onto his arms or under the wings. I prefer to just put it under the wings because it looks better. It kind of just looks like it's part of the wings because the wings and the sword are the same color. So, yeah. It almost makes me wish he came with two swords so that way it looked even. And this little Cyberplanet key, it stays on there a little too well, so I like to use the sword to like kind of pry it out. Because even with my fingers, it's just on there a little too well, so I guess you could use the sword as a prying tool. Also, just as further proof that you can transform them without having to rotate the little fin up and make the spaceship mode look a little bit clean, but again, I advise against this because you do risk breaking those. And just to round things off, here is a quick vehicle mode comparison with Override. So there you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed this quick review of Transformers Legacy United Cybertron Universe Vector Prime. I was working on another video, but it was going to end up having me delve into topics I don't really want to talk about, so like politics and religion, and I decided to scrap that video. So in the meantime, enjoy this quick little filler video. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.